Hello, and welcome to today's special webinar event on automating the solution to cloud cost optimization. Today's webinar is sponsored by DoiT and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, there are a few things that you should know about this webinar. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources for download or as links. There's a one-page PDF about DoiT's Flexsave. There's a link to DoiT's page and a link to a demo video. You'll also find our Guerrilla Guide book club for Actual Tech Media. That's our great printed resources about all kinds of technology topics, and a link to the ATM Event Center where you can find links to registration pages for more great events like this one. So I encourage you to access those resources and share them with your friends and colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky attendee on the live event. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Again, just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the terms there. Finally, one of the best advantages of an event like this is the ability to ask questions of our expert presenters. So in order to encourage you to do that, we do have one other additional prize. It's a $50 Amazon gift card that we give out for the best question. So at the end of the event, we'll look at all the questions that came in, and the person who sent in the best question will get a $50 gift card. Okay, let's get to today's great content. So in a moment, I'm going to be bringing on our presenters. We have John Purcell, who's Chief Product Officer for Flexsave at DoiT, and we have Ariel Pazetsky, who's Vice President of Information Technology and Cyber at Taboola, and also a longtime DoiT customer. So the bulk of the presentation is going to be a conversation between the two of them about automation and especially cloud cost optimization. And then following that, I'll come back in and we'll do a Q&A portion where we'll take your live questions. So let me bring in our speakers. John, Ariel, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, good to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us.
All right. Well, John, I will turn things over to you to take it from here.
Well, thanks, Scott. And thanks to everyone who's taken some time out to join us. And of course, Ariel, thank you so much to you for your time and for, as Scott introed, we've been working with you for many, many years, and we're delighted to keep doing that. And I think you make us stronger, and hopefully as we help you, we're helping you in some of the operational challenges you have in your business. But over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, I'd love to dig into that a little bit with you, but maybe just to set it up. One of the primary themes of the session today is this concept of cloud management, but more specifically cloud cost management. I think if you're a user of the cloud, like many of the audiences today, you'll know that we've all rushed for years to adopt cloud. Cloud was the great promise. It certainly provides agility, it provides speed, it provides flexibility and competitive advantage. It gives us CapEx to OpEx sort of advantages in certain cases. But one of the things we've learned acutely in those years is that it's rarely cheaper. It's rarely more economical just as you get there to start a business, to migrate a business, to migrate an operation to the public cloud. And I think that's why this theme and this topic is so critically important now. And our philosophy and our view and what DoiT does on a daily basis with our clients is to get that under control, demonstrate that there is a way to right size the cloud infrastructure you're using, spend the right amount of money in proportion to the way your business is performing. And increasing cloud costs, it might be perfectly reasonable or perfectly fine in a growing company, but ensuring that it is growing in proportion to your business, I think, is the thing we spend most of our time trying to drive to. So that's why this theme is so important. And I'd love to dive into this with you, but maybe just to kick off, Ariel, would you tell us a little bit about your business, how you take advantage of the public cloud for those workloads that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm happy that you're hosting me here today, and glad to be here. And let's dive into what we do and how we do it. So Taboola is the content recommendation platform. We are that, I'd say, banner or widget at the end of a web page or on the right rail sometimes, where you get to see additional content that you never knew was out there and you may like. It is at that moment of next, when you're reading, you're leaning into your device, you're kind of looking at it, you're reading something, you just finished it, you still have a few moments until the train, the bus, something else happens, and you get that content recommendation. Now, in terms of scale, we do this 4 billion web pages a day. Okay, so just going back on that number, we do this on 4 billion web pages a day, give or take a few. And then we do this for about 1.5 billion web users a month, unique web users a month. So that's quite a number. Now, at that scale, we're talking about really billions of lines of logs, billions of recommendations, a whole lot of things that are happening. So we balance our cloud usage and our on-prem usage to really where it makes the most sense for us. And I would say that we have really fun use cases, anywhere from full products that are just now starting off and we want to start them off fast and understand if they will become a full viable product, and then we see them on one of the major clouds, or a much older use case that we have had for quite many years now, I'd say over 7 years now, is taking data, pushing it into Google Cloud Platform, specifically into the storage, and from there having it available for us in BigQuery. Now you're going, Ariel, that isn't unique. There's nothing special about that. And I would add that this started as a backup program. So we wanted to back up all of our data onto the cloud and not onto those dusty old kind of tapes where you lose them, or you have to kind of manage them and shift them and cycle them and all the other things that you had to do with tapes. And then we went a step further and we said, if the data is already there and it's a cost, let's make this data into something way more interesting and turn it into value by putting it into BigQuery and then actually turning data into knowledge. And this became now not just backup, but a live product that we use and that really helps us achieve interesting things. So those are two just examples of I'd say use cases that we have.
Got it. That's very interesting. So can you pinpoint the moment at which you started to really explore the boundaries and push the limits on that public cloud portion of your workload and your operations, and what were some of the immediate sort of realities that you observed and saw, specifically as it pertains to just what it was costing you and how quickly you had to get your arms around that?
Absolutely. So looking at when you start the journey on the cloud, so looking at that beginning, at that moment, there's not only naivete, but there's that fun feeling of, oh, I'm doing this cool new thing. Everyone is doing it. It's like the new kid on the block, and you open up, let's say, BigQuery. This is a fun one. You open up BigQuery for a bunch of people, and they don't work in IT. They just query databases, and they're not used to querying a cloud. So they don't think of a query as a per query cost. They think of a query as IT's problem to provide a server that will answer a question. And then you kind of start to fall into those places where you're going, oh, I did not expect the cost to be that. Or maybe you kind of didn't read all the different problems or different, I'd say, kind of SKU numbers that are really relevant for your specific use case, or you're just trying to kind of calculate back who is creating the most cost and is that relevant for your business while providing a specific service, also fondly known in the IT business as IT chargeback. So you've got all these things that are happening when you started really on a simple, fun, I'd say, technology path where you said, this is really easy. Let's put it in the hands of a bunch of users so that they can do something really like imaginative and new and beneficial for the business. And at the end of the day, you have the CFO saying, but you said it's going to be only $100 and it's actually 150 or 2,000 or 5,000 because no one thought to turn it off at the end of the day. And that was, again, years ago, before many of the tools that exist today. And it was extreme manual work to start to understand and make sense of the log files and what's happening within them. And from that point moving forward, we've been working with DoiT on specifically the DoiT portal that holds within it the I'd say invoice analytics part, where every day we have more and more features and we can actually look into our invoice and actually into our billing, into our detailed billing, of course, on a daily basis and understand many things. It depends, of course, on the way you structure the data. If you put on labels and stuff, we don't have to go into the product for a second now, but just say that starting at that point of actively going in and looking, the next phase of the automation was, of course, having the data chase us and then not only come to us, but go out to the actual end users of this technology. So if we're going back to those analysts that are using BigQuery, it became suddenly super easy to send out to all of the analysts, here is your daily bill. And here's a graph with your daily bill. And does this make sense? And are you sure that you intended to spend this amount on whatever project that it is? So with time, we became more and more automated and had the ability, I'll use a fun term, to aggressively share the billing information in such a way that it really kind of, I'd say, touched the end users and the people that are creating the bill in terms of usage.
I love that term, aggressively share. I'm going to use that in future. You did touch on a very, very interesting and I think important point a few moments ago when you mentioned this idea of IT chargeback. One of the challenges that we have been hearing about, frankly, since we first got into this, started this business, was this idea that businesses are trying to retrofit cloud computing to a traditional way of tracking spend, especially IT budgeted spend, which a lot of which was driven by CapEx considerations, right? And so a lot of the challenges that I think we see in the consultancy side of our business, as well as the use cases we've tried to build into our technology and into our products, have been looking at the reality that doing things like chargeback, or to your point, aggressively sharing drivers of cost to the people that are actually driving it, is really where the challenge lies when it comes to getting your arms around public cloud cost. And I'll sort of wrap up on that point by just also acknowledging what you'd said, that we see companies on a journey, right? And step one of that journey, simply as you put it, is give me visibility into what's going on. First of all, I see it's a fun thing to do. Infrastructure is available. It's exciting new services to experiment with. It's a playground. And that's the contract you sort of intuitively get into when you embrace the public cloud, right? That's when I need infrastructure, I can get it in a few clicks, in a few seconds, and I can eliminate all of that problem. But visibility into what the implications of that flexibility are is the key. And once you see it, you can start showing people aggressively if necessary, and then start taking action to address it, optimize it, right size it, drive savings, and discount mechanisms, and eliminating waste across your infrastructure estate. And I think that's to me the sweet spot where we find a lot of the market exists today. And it sounds like you're you started this journey some time ago, but it sounds like you've been able to achieve some of that, and some of it with DoiT's help.
Yes. And so if we actually dive into the product itself for a second, specifically I'm talking about the analytics product on the DoiT side. So for the past, wow, I'd say even 8 years, I've been using different analytic tools to understand what's happening with my bill. Some of them are like really nice GUIs and became very elaborate with time and try to give you some type of advice. But once you get over the first level of advice, and especially if you have a very diverse use of the cloud, then it really becomes amazing how much help the DoiT tool gives you in working with your data. I'd like to specifically talk about the machine learning capabilities. When you're looking at a whole lot, a line graph, let's start with a kind of a line chart or a line graph, and you have 30 SKUs in there. And this is before the first drill down. This is just at the services level. So you have 30, 40, maybe 60 services there. And you just want to see what's trending up and what's trending down. And having really interesting machine learning feature as part of the product at the tip of your fingers is really amazing, because it really helps single out, oh, this is what changed from a specific period to this period, in a really smart way. And then the ability to kind of really slice and dice and dive in very fast, very easily, helps create that visibility that is so needed when you are working on really, again, large bills and a big amount of SKUs. So working with my IT clients, let's call them, but really they're my internal partners. I send them out every day. When I say I send them out, of course, the tool automatically sends them out a daily report that is relevant for them. And then if they flag something, they can go in and slice dice it on their own. They don't even need IT. They can do all of this on their own. My role is kind of to look top level down and say, okay, the total spend changed or other things changed, and I want to comprehend where this is going as the person that is in charge of technology in the company.
Got it. The thing that jumps out to me is, as a product person building products for DoiT, as you've described, to solve some of the challenges and answer some of the questions you've outlined here. What we found, and what I have found over the years, is that you could build the best product in the world, as you put it. You could build the most elegant UI. You could build the most usable series of features, but it needs to connect and enable an organization that culturally is prepared to think about these questions, to think about these challenges, or maybe even these problems, right? If we want to call it that. And I think you touched on something very important there when you said at Taboola, you are incorporating, you're democratizing this concept of accountability around spend, right? And so there's a sort of a point of view in the market, or there has been, that proactive governance via constraint, like let's constrain activity as a way to control this, is the path to take, which is a very old school, I would say, old traditional IT model, versus what you're doing, which is let's show people what's happening. Let's show different teams and different groups, different parts of the organization, what they're contributing, to this larger story, and let's have them, share in that accountability, right? So this concept of distributed accountability, I think, is key. And a system like DoiT's has been designed with that concept in mind, where you can take core sets of data. Yes, you can apply machine learning to sort of look for patterns, find anomalies, build projections, but then being able to slice that in a way that's relevant to the way your business is organized and deliver that, into the workflow that these people sort of experience on a daily basis. That to me is the sweet spot, and that's where we focused a lot of our energy. So can you speak a little bit about the cultural piece of that and how the product sort of fits with what you're driving organizationally?
Absolutely. So looking at aggressive sharing, that came to us in Taboola not by chance. We really make sure that as our culture, we are transparent, we are blameless, and we are accountable. like anyone in IT, anyone in R&D, that is the way that we operate. So to be transparent is not only to kind of have a report or have a ticket or have a dashboard something. To be transparent is to aggressively share, is to send out that information. The creating the data democratization is really important, because I'll go even further back. Why is there a cloud? It didn't come to solve economic problems. It came to solve the basic problem that we as IT were slow, or we were hard to work with. And to, I'd say, become better in our profession, we need to be better in transparency. We need to be faster. We need to be more agile. We need to allow the business the velocity that it wishes to have. Eventually, the business end is what actually demands the IT. The IT doesn't live on its own. It's not IT for the sake of technology. It's IT for the sake of the business. So once you kind of bring all of those ideas into your daily operations as an IT manager or as a cloud manager or as an SRE, it really, anything in the world of tech and service, bringing it to the aggressive sharing level where you provide as much information out there as possible, and bring in your partner to be really a part of the process and part of the cost understanding, helps the client understand limitations, helps the partner understand where they want to go. Please note, I'm using client and partner really interchangeably, because I like the idea that these are my clients and I need to provide them good service. But at the end of the day, they're not my clients. They're my peers. They work with me. We're all working towards the same goals. So they're also my partners, and we need to remember that. So bringing all of that together and really helping everyone be better at using and utilizing IT services serves the business. So I hope that kind of wraps it and explains it for you.
It does, and if it does, thank you. If I could maybe just punctuate that with one final question on that particular point. Do the people that are benefiting from the transparency, right, that are engaging in this kind of blameless sort of accountability piece, to your point, which I love that concept, do they carry any sort of organizational goals or objectives around executing well here, or can you describe to me a little bit about how you sort of build that momentum and you build that shared sense of accountability?
Lovingly so. So what happens is that eventually we all have the same goal: to make Taboola successful. So everyone here on the webinar, you have your goal of having your company, your business, your not for profit, whatever it is, successful, because, or else what are you doing there? Now, once you're part of that bigger idea, bringing in additional people and helping everyone consume the IT services in a better way, in a more responsible way, in a way that helps everyone with their own goals. So I have an internal partner, and they have a goal of creating a product that is, let's say, more responsive. A very easy use case: add CPUs, it will be more responsive. Not a problem if IT just pays for it. And instead of having that conversation of, oh, IT, why are you kind of cheaping out on me and not buying more or creating more or bringing more compute to this problem, we can have a joint conversation of, this is what it's been costing on a daily basis. This is what it costs on an annual basis. What is interesting for you with this product? What is the sweet spot for you? Is it additional engineering work to improve response times? Or is it just, let's spend more IT to bring more, let's say, compute to the table and solve the problem with money? And then once you have this conversation, it doesn't become this only like, oh, it's not responsive because IT, it's their problem. It becomes, let's all of us bring our brain power to the table, try to solve something in a way that is beneficial for everyone, and not just because I'm bookkeeping somewhere in a room, like with a green visor.
That might suit you. You should give it a shot. If maybe we just zoom out for a moment, because you're describing a lot of sort of what I would consider best practices, because you have a level of maturity here that I think is quite pronounced, and it's fascinating to see how successful you can be when you can reach this level of maturity. But I'm really curious. If you roll the clock back maybe 12 to 24 months, if you could give me a sense, how much time do you think you were spending on this particular, topic or question or part of the operational? I mean, someone like your role, a senior level role, I'm sure you're responsible for many different aspects of the business and the operation. How much time do you think you would allocate, just in general terms, to this specific topic?
So the world of cost management, I would say, is absolutely something that we invest time in. We have multiple kind of, I'd say we reached the level of automation. Before it was automated, I would say we spent hours a week on and a few individuals, hours a week on proactively going in, checking dashboards, going in, checking invoices, going in, checking different things for multiple different SaaS services and cloud services that we're using. I'd say it's prior to COVID, because we built the automation in once we identified the real need to replace something that can be aggressively shared and doesn't have to be something that we proactively spend time on. So reducing the need to go and look for the data, bring it all into a central place. From there, having it in a central place, pushing it out to all of our partners, using the tools that we get from DoiT to do a lot of these automations, and I'd say data consolidation saved us a lot of time on a weekly basis.
That's great. And that sort of leads me quite nicely, I think, to sort of the theme of automation, which you touched on in your description. One of the things that we've been observing in the market over the last handful of years is for companies that are on this journey, right, who are on the journey to sort of optimize and get their arms around and control, cloud expense, cloud expenditure. I referred earlier to this concept of sort of this maturity journey where we start off with just visibility, and you've described in great detail how you drove to that, how the DoiT systems were able to help you sort of see that in one place and then allocate and show back and aggressively share, as you put it, and give insights into sort of the implications of certain decisions over time, right? And the machine learning capabilities we've added to the product set help identify patterns or anomalous behavior, or maybe make predictions of some kind, or forecasts. To me, the next big step in this journey is, to use your term, automation, right? How do we go beyond just showing? How do we go beyond just reporting? And how do we take it to the world of, whether you call it remediation, whether you call it action, whether you call it just, I've built a level of trust in the system now. I understand what it's doing. Just take care of it for me, and it'll save even more time, to your point. Can you talk a bit about how you reached that level of comfort, assuming that's where you're at, and I believe that's where you're at? Can you talk to me about that journey to comfort with automation, or if you see it a little bit differently?
Yeah. Thank you. That's an interesting observation and a very good question. So let's start with the kind of, again, as you said, a few years back, when we had a manual report that we would create and an Excel file that we would update, and that would be then shared on a kind of weekly report with multiple people. But that was a very, very manual intensive process. And then it also got us to think of, wait, if we're doing this manually, maybe we're doing other things manually with cost itself, from reserved instances to data lifecycle to, I'd say, database partitioning. There are multiple things that you think or you might be doing manually that you transfer to the automatic side of life as part of the cloud. And for some reason, the billing is almost always like the last one. It's like everyone knows it's sweet to delete. You make sure that you don't keep data in the cloud that you don't need, and that you have a lifetime policy on it, because or forever you're going to be paying more and more, and the graph trend will always be going up. So you want to make sure that you have a policy that, let's say, is, I don't know, 18 months, and then you constantly have a certain amount of data, unless the data itself is growing. With automation on reserved instances or spot instances or anything around that world, you can actually achieve the next level of automation and of cost improvements. And instead of having those quarterly discussions and checking, oh, these are the reserved instances that have kind of not matured, have reached their end of cycle, their end of purchase cycle. Do I renew them? Do I not? Have I been using them? Have I not? Spending a lot of time there. We found the kind of Flex servers, the Flexsave, kind of to be the next level of automation for us. So that's yet another product that we're using today, where instead of managing reserved instances on a scale and constantly trying to think and plan, and actually, when you're using reserved instances, you're doing something that is counter cloud intuitive. You're saying, okay, let me plan 3 years in advance as if you bought a physical server. I stopped buying physical servers with the cloud. I mean, I still have a very large install base of physical servers, but I'm not. The whole idea of the cloud, again, is to manage this totally differently and come to my internal partners and not tell them commit now for 3 years or this will cost 30% more. And this is really the beauty of Flex, because we come in and we say, okay, automate all of this for me. And now from month to month, I commit only, I don't even commit, I auto commit with this product to only the servers that are relevant. I save the cost as if they were reserved instances, but I get a month by month flexibility, which is really amazing, and zero work on my side. I'm getting all of the savings and zero work. So it's like almost a non-brainer to use it.
Well, I thank you for mentioning that. Our Flexsave investment started, I would say, at the beginning of 2021, when we realized we observed some of the patterns of behavior and some of the patterns in the problem set that our clients were experiencing across the industry. And I think you touched on some of the most critical ones. Yes, there are ways that the cloud providers give you plenty of ways to reduce the unit cost for infrastructure. And these are sort of ubiquitous and generally well understood, I would say. At least we understand what savings I can generate on a per unit basis. The problem, I think, as you nailed, was it requires predictability. Because it requires a commitment. It requires a commitment in either 1 or 3 year increments. And exactly as you say, the very nature of the cloud is it's ephemeral, it's elastic. Infrastructure comes and goes. It's changing. I would say, constantly or continuously. And so I love the way you put it. It's counterintuitive in the world of cloud. It's sort of almost, it's anti-pattern, right? When you think about the whole point of the cloud and elastic compute. And so that was the problem we set out to solve when we started down the Flexsave path. And so, roll the clock forward now, what we see is companies like Taboola who just are comfortable with the idea of saying, yeah, look, I don't need to maintain a staff. I don't need to spend hours myself trying to manage my fleet of discounts, right? I need to track how many do I need. I need teams to tell me how long they can commit. I need to come up with some steady state or predictable steady state level of usage, and then ensure I'm covered there. And what does coverage even mean? Am I covered for all workload types, all machine types, all regions, all geos? It becomes an n-dimensional problem. And it's almost too much for the human brain, I think, to keep up with. And I think we sort of felt like software and automation is the only way to solve this problem. And oh, by the way, ease the commitment risk, ease the commitment problem. So thank you for touching on that. So you've had a chance to you were one of our earliest customers around Flexsave, and so you've had a chance to see this in action for some time now. Where has this, I would say, most dramatically helped you in your day to day?
So the fact that we don't have to have these conversations around how much time do we want to commit? What is this product? When are we going to see ROI from it? Do you want to buy things for 3 years or not? And really take the cloud to its fullest extent. So Flexsave saves us time. I mean, obviously it saves cost. All right, let's start with the end in mind. It's pure, simple cost savings. Taking that for a second aside, the fact that it saves time by really stopping these conversations. I recall multiple meetings where we're sitting with the internal partner and saying, look, you haven't committed, we have here. And for some whatever reason, you're not working on spot instances because it's not an ephemeral instance. It has its storage. It can't be on some storage that doesn't that goes away. Whatever the tech problem that it's not on the least cost path, let's find a way that we can still enjoy cost savings. And the client is going, but I don't know, will this still be here 3 months, 4 months? If it's 8 months, then we have ROI because you can commit for a full year. And all this just goes away. You don't have to explain it every time. You don't have to have these conversations. You don't have to create reports. You just let the automation work, and you have the flex savings where you need them. Another fun part is that every time you look at reserved instances, historically at least, by the way, I really want to buy that time machine. You're constantly rolling forward and back the clock there, but we'll have that a conversation on another time. If we all recall, the way that we use reserved instances is you buy like the minimum amount of reserve, and then you automate the auto scale, use the auto scale for like the spikes and whatnot. If you have a graceful enough spike that isn't an hour a day, you can have a really fun kind of experience with Flexsave, because if your spikes are 3/4 of the month long, Flexsave will know to tell you, oh, here, this, that, or the other, here are the solutions. Automate, yes, no. Once you automate, you don't even have to think about that anymore, and you just save the costs.
Got it. Yeah, I'm working on the clock problem. The purpose of having a clock on the wall, I guess, is offset if it's constantly changing. I think the video is behaving strangely. So I think you touched on some very critical points there. As I mentioned earlier, the primary problem we were trying to solve with Flexsave is to get companies out of the business of having teams just sitting around trying to ensure they're paying the best rate for usage that they actually need, right? Or usage that is actually growing and ebbing and flowing, so to speak. So Flexsave at its core focuses on finding the best rate for your compute usage without you having to commit to 1 or 3 years. We essentially take the risk of that commitment, and then you get the benefit as you said, on a month-to-month basis. I think maybe that's probably the best way to summarize it. Our goal here is to work with companies and to give them a product that can find the best unit rate for usage that they know they need. And as that comes and goes, having confidence and comfort knowing that the best rate's always going to apply. Right? I think that's kind of what we set out to do there. I think as part of a larger optimization story, right? I think you then start to think about things. Well, if I'm paying the right price for my infrastructure, then I have confidence in knowing that I'm not going to see those spikes because I'm not optimized from a price perspective. In our mind, usage is probably next, right? And when I talk about usage, we talk about waste elimination, finding things you can turn off, right? All of the other things you described earlier that drive that, upward trend in cost. And so I think that's the inevitable next step, next place to go here. We have a couple of questions coming in real time. Maybe I could just sort of ping you with one or two of these. So the first is, Taboola is a robust company. I think we can agree. You're incredibly, some of the numbers you shared with us earlier are quite staggering, and congratulations on all your success. Perception, though, in the question, can Flexsave benefit smaller companies or startups, or is it best suited as a customer of it for companies of your size and sophistication?
So Flexsave, you would know more of the product than I would, but as a user, I can share. that Flexsave can save you dollars from the first server, like from a single server. So it has nothing to do with the size of Taboola. It has everything to do with, are you using reserved instances today? And do you want to stop having those conversations of risk on a 3-year commit or on other types of commit? Once you kind of realize that you already have reserved instances today, therefore you can save the exact same amounts with Flexsave. Let's use the full product name, sorry. But you can also gain the flexibility of a month by month and reduce the commit and not have a upfront commit. Like, again, it's a no-brainer and has nothing to do with Taboola size. Thank you for whoever asked that question.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for taking a run at the question. I would reinforce, I think, your comment. It has its impact. It has its impact from the first server. I think that's a very good way, of putting it. DoiT in general, I'll just say, does, the majority of companies that we do business with, both as part of a reseller and consultancy, as well as our product components of our business, are really mostly focused on sort of that fast growing digital native, either born in the cloud or have a sophisticated level of understanding of how to operate in the cloud, like Taboola. But usually these are companies that have engineering teams. They're cloud savvy, they're cloud aware, they have a sophistication already in their operation. And even those companies have benefit from having a friend to phone, having a partner to phone and be in contact with, and have a set of products that they can bring to bear on these challenges and help automate some of the help automate some of the problems and the time and the expense from the operation away. So I think, Ariel, you said that perfectly, and I think hopefully I clarified how we see the market. So I want to give us some time for some other questions in the audience, but maybe we could just sort of finish up with a question from me to you before we get to audience questions. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Ariel. Right, as you, with someone in your position who sort of has a lot of experience, so you've seen where we've come, you've seen where we are today, you have the level of operational proficiency and sophistication. Where do you see this? Where do you see the state of this art in the market in general going over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, assuming that we don't have another global pandemic or this one moves on?
So there's an extremely interesting article from Andreessen Horowitz that speaks on cloud trends and looked at quite a few publicly traded companies and their cloud spend and their IT spend, where they reported it, and I'd say the valuation of the company. And I'll bring you to the end and the conclusion that said, it's obvious that you have to start on the cloud, but the larger you get, you probably have to come back from the cloud to the on-prem. So there's a larger cycle at play here, that for things that are always on, they should probably be always off the cloud, and IT and hosting isn't going away at that level. Having said that, it is absolutely clear that the cloud is here to stay, that more and more of us in the world of IT will be using the cloud, and the more we can save from day one, and the fact that I'd say the realization that cost savings in the cloud are a big part of cloud management. And it's not just let's turn on a server and like whippy, it's working. Let's make sure that we're also using it properly. And it's the same as leaving a faucet open. It's not, oh, wonderful, here's water. No. Here's water, but you need to conserve water. You can't just waste it. So management tools will become like the only way to manage your cloud costs. They will become more and more integrated into the first time you go to the cloud, and the automations and ability to really save and find what really is utilizing the most of your cloud. I'd say the most and the most erratic and flaky kind of skew numbers that are moving all around the chart bring them up forward much, much faster. So that's kind of a few thoughts there. And I think DoiT is positioned beautifully exactly on that, looking at the billing, looking at the billing data, looking at billing data across a lot of different customers, and bringing insights to me as a single customer that I get to see only my cloud. Is like, so I'm benefiting from your experience without having to kind of overshare or feel something that is kind of, oh no, I don't want to go there.
I think you and I could probably fill a 60-minute webinar just on the topic of that Andreessen Horowitz report. It is. Yes. I think it stokes a lot of interesting debate on this subject of to public cloud or not to public cloud. And to be honest, I found it a little lazy. I think there's undoubtedly companies, especially those on the cusp of entering the public markets, who have not been paying attention to this challenge and for this problem for long enough. And for sure, that just creates a drag on their expenditure because they're not cost optimized. For the types of companies that we do business with, as you know, these are companies, I think, early enough in their life cycle, in their growth cycle, where you get your arms around this problem now, you never have to confront that apparent reality or the Andreessen Horowitz reality. And we've got great friends at the firm, believe in the reporting, but I just think it's a lazy argument to say, well, it's too expensive, move it back, repatriate workloads to the data center. We couldn't figure it out. DoiT exists, frankly, to help drive maturity and to help companies achieve the kind of maturity and controls that would make this an irrelevant argument, quite honestly. The promise of the cloud and the flexibility, the innovation it has driven in the last decade is just, it's too valuable to consider this argument legitimate, in my opinion. It certainly garners a reaction from me. So maybe it's been an effective piece of writing. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to call Scott back in because I think we had a couple of questions coming in from the audience, and I wanted to give us a chance to try to take those on.
Yeah, super. Yeah, and so we do have a lot of questions, and I just have to say this conversation has been great. Ariel, what you said about reserved instances, that articulated something that's been bothering me since they were announced, however many years ago that was. And, and John, what you said about them being sort of an anti-pattern or counterintuitive, I just thought that was a really valuable set of insights there. So thanks to both of you for that. So there's a question here from Tatiana who's wondering, how does the automation deal with the dynamic price and cost changes? John, you were talking a little bit about all the discounts, and how do you manage all those pricing changes from the big hyperscalers?
Scott, was that a question for me or for Ariel?
Yeah, I think John, that was for you. On the platform side, how do you handle that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tatiana, and thank you, Scott, for relaying the question. The only way that a product like this can work and can work on a sustained basis over time is if we have the mechanisms within it to track current and best pricing. We know and have done a great deal of research on sort of all of the sort of complexities associated with whether it's reserved instances, savings plans on the AWS side, or whether it's committed use discounts or CUDs on the Google Cloud side. And we have system and core services and systems that are constantly, I would say, staying abreast of those changes, staying abreast of current market position and current discount percentages that some of these mechanisms allow for. So yes, you're quite right. As the cloud or the hyperscalers are changing the level of discount you get for this machine type in this region with this type of workload, our systems are constantly assessing how to ensure you're getting the best rate based on where we see that configuration in your infrastructure and what we find available from the hyperscalers themselves. So it's the only way a product like this can work effectively.
In Ariel, from a customer perspective, what does that look like to you? Like, how are those things surfaced to you, or how do you find the way that that DoiT handles that works for you.
So the fun part for me is, of course, that this is a non-brainer. Once we activated the automation, we don't have to think anymore about anything related to the cost and the changing cost of the market. We just need to make sure that we're using I'd call it a machine family or the instance family that we're intending to use, and to make sure that we are using it in a smart way, that just leaving it on. So beyond the, I'd say, IT sense part of it, the whole part of pricing is taken out of the equation. It's fully automated, and I know that I'm getting the best price, especially for a monthly commit, and I'm paying something that is only a reserved instance for a way longer commit could give me.
Super, thanks. The next question we have here is asking about, does the Flexsave tool enable similar savings if you're on Google Cloud?
Yes, it supports both Google Cloud and AWS. The discounts, the discount rates, the effective discount rates on a compute workload do vary between the two clouds, and so but we're operating and support all available sort of compute discounts in both clouds.
Super. Here's one for Ariel. How quickly did you start to see increased savings with Flexsave?
So Flexsave gives you the savings from the first dollar. So really from day one, the fact that you're not putting any capex upfront, but you're getting all the benefits of the reserved instance, means that the savings are there from day one.
And John, I think that leads into a question we got here from Bradford for you, and he's wondering, like, when you talked about, DoiT taking the risk, what does that mean?
So the hyperscalers require somebody to make a purchase in 1 or 3 year increments. We are the ones making those purchases and making those commitments, right? So we're absorbing the risk of workloads coming and going, right? So we will make purchases to cover workloads we see in our customers' infrastructure. We will apply those discounts appropriately, as Ariel has pointed out, on a monthly basis. And if you don't need them as a customer anymore, we will remove them from your account. So that's where we bear the risk. We bear the risk essentially of essentially over provisioning. So that and the risk that just to put a finer point. So the risk Ariel talked about earlier in his setup was you have to sit in a room with the owners of workloads and start sitting down to have the conversation about how long will this be running? Can you commit to me that it'll be running consistently for a year, right? Because a year is the lowest increment of discount purchase I can make, right? So you have to be able to do that. And then I need to be able to go make a purchase, possibly with a lot of upfront capex, assuming you can capitalize it, a lot of upfront expenditure. So what DoiT is doing is we're taking on that risk so that the customer doesn't have to.
Okay, great. In the next question, John, you were talking about sort of the core value, of getting companies out of the business of, figuring out, their best rate for compute usage or for cloud usage. What is sort of, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the low-hanging fruit of when somebody first signs up, with DoiT versus the long-term value. I mean, do you get most of it up front, or is your bigger value, sort of the long tail of using the product?
Yeah. If I'll give you sort of a broader answer there, Scott. So DoiT is in the business of primarily helping companies focus more on their business than the operation of their cloud. And we do that in a variety of ways, right? Some companies need more of that. Some companies need less of that. We're not a managed service provider in the sense that we don't run your cloud for you, but we try to help you solve the hairier problems, the harder questions, and even the most sophisticated engineering-centric or technology-centric growth companies inevitably run up against those types of questions as they're poised for scale. Are we architected well? Are we using the right technology services? Are we using the right database or data storage structures? Are we in the right regions? Right? Is our Kubernetes configuration, optimized? There are just a wide variety of challenges and questions, and just interesting topics that companies just want a little bit of help with. So the first, or I would say the longest standing part of DoiT's value proposition is to make a team of cloud operations experts available to you 24/7, essentially, around the world to help answer those questions when you need answers to those questions. It's a level of, we call it like a white glove sort of concierge advisory or support service. And if you transact, if you bill for your cloud usage through DoiT, those people are available to you at no additional cost. We're not charging you time and materials. We're not building statements of work. You simply call when you need help. Call when you have a question, and you'll get access to the right person in the organization. So that's really sort of frames up the advisory and consultancy and support side of the value proposition. And that's available to you literally day one, right? Many companies come to us because they have a hard question or a hard problem that they know is going to be sort of hairy, and they want to engage with a partner like DoiT who can help them from the very beginning. The products and the technology, we've been a technology company now for almost 10 years. We've been building technology over the course of those years. And what we decided about 3 years ago was to productize some of those systems and some of that technology so that our customers could actually get the benefit that we get, right? So we were using these systems, some of the analytics and reporting tools that Ariel described earlier, to give us insight into your cost and usage reporting and where things were coming from. So we decided by productizing, we could give our customers the ability to do the same thing, right? And if you are a resold customer of DoiT, meaning you pay for your cloud services through DoiT, you have access to this product portfolio, again, at no additional cost, right? And that value is available to you from the day you can, what we call consolidate, which is switch your billing relationship to be via DoiT instead of direct. Right. The Flexsave piece is sort of the final or the latest, I would say, product in the portfolio. And once you sort of click the button to say, I opt in, as Ariel described, it will start applying those savings to the first dollar we see, in your infrastructure. So it's pretty, I would say, instantaneous.
Super. Thanks for that answer. And we're coming up on time. So, I think the last question here that we probably have time to get to is just, how does the company get started with Flexsave?
Well, thank you for that, Scott. Yeah, so I'll give a very quick answer on that. So if you go to our website, DoiT-international, DoiT-intl.com, and go to the product section, you'll see all the information currently available about Flexsave with a link to get started. It's a way to reach out to us. It's a way to kind of engage with the company, and we'd be happy to provide more information in greater detail. So I would encourage you to go there. Maybe just given that we've got a minute left, I just wanted to express my thanks to Ariel for taking the time out to have this conversation with us. I think we've obviously a precious customer of ours. We've been working with Taboola for many, many years. They challenge us, they push us, they challenge us to be better, and we are better for it. So Ariel, thanks to you and your team for all your help, and look forward to many more years. And Scott, thank you for hosting.
My pleasure, and thanks to both of you for a great conversation, and for the Taboola customer experience, and just for the overview and bringing us up to speed on DoiT. This has been really educational for me. I think based on some of the questions in the comments, as well for the audience. So thank you very much, and with that, we'll close the discussion portion of the webinar, and we will quickly go to our prize drawing to thank everybody for being on. And the winner of the $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing for today is George Meller from Massachusetts. So congratulations, George. We'll be in touch to get you your prize. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I do want to thank DoiT and John and Ariel for being here and making this event possible. And that concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day.